Welcome to the Warning Track Power Hour. I'm Andrew Scaff. He's Mike Werman. Today we're going to talk a little bit about the NBA playoffs and the NHL playoffs. And again, the Royals have been demoted to the third slot in our show for today because they're back to being terrible again.
They are.
And then we'll wrap up with a little bit of NFL news and this with the schedule release. But we'll start today's episode with a little bit of breaking news, I guess. The NBA has announced that the San Antonio Spurs have won the draft lottery and the rights to sign and draft and potentially sign Victor Wembanyama. Is he the franchise player that they've been looking for these last few years where they've struggled a lot?
I think he is I think he's got to be. At least he seems to be like the most hyped prospect the NBA has had in several years.
Yeah,
And I think I read somewhere he was the most maybe hyped prospect since LeBron entered the
probably
league. He's like 7'3".
three.
You get different there's different I forget from 7'2" to 7'5",
Yeah,
and he shoots the three. He can handle the ball.
yeah.
Um, and the Spurs I think really hit the jackpot here. I guess they won the lottery, so it's like hitting the
They
jackpot.
they actually won the jackpot. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's because it's kind of interesting because it seems like the Spurs' success under Popovich originally came because of the lottery. Um,
What,
when
two different
they,
times they won the
they've
lottery?
won it, this is the third time that they've won it, and the first time they won it, they picked uh, David Robinson, and Robinson. I think what year was the draft? I think this was because David Robinson went to the Naval Academy, and I think he had to serve 2 more years of service. So I think maybe the Spurs drafted like 87, maybe was the year that they drafted him because that was the last year he played in college. And then he
So that was pre-Popovich then. Like, so Pop
yeah,
didn't
pre-Popovich, yeah.
didn't draft.
No. So this yeah, he drafted, it was 1987 NBA draft. Um with the first overall pick, but he couldn't play until 1989
So he finished his
uh,
service.
to finish his service, and then um, so he was around for several years, and the teams were okay with David Robinson as their star, but then it was the second lottery when because I think David Robinson got hurt one season and the Spurs were terrible. And then was it 99 when they also won the lottery and they got to draft Tim Duncan? Uh,
97.
97? Okay, 97.
Yeah. Spurs
97.
disastrous season, 1997. Allowed them to pick first overall.
Mm-hmm.
Duncan out of Wake Forest.
Tim Duncan, yeah, out of Wake Forest. Also, and then, he was a center really, but he was able to be like, he played power forward for the,
Well, they could both switch back and forth as to
yeah,
who's the center, who's the power forward, right?
yeah, the Twin Towers they
Robinson.
had, and then
Yeah.
they won um, the first title I think in 1999. So his second season playing, and then he won 5 championships in 15 years with under Popovich, and that was the Spurs. I guess you could call it. I guess you could call it a dynasty. They weren't at least the first four. They only won I think 99, 03, 05, and 07. So the 8 years they won four. They alternated every year,
Right.
basically. It was a little like the San Francisco Giants. Remember when they were going to the World Series? It was 2010, 2012, and then 2014 they beat the
14,
Royals,
yeah.
and that was their third in 5 years. Um, so
I mean, 3 in 5 years is not easy to do, and
yeah,
and then, but then to come have one 4 years earlier, and then another one, what, 7 years after that?
yeah.
Those were with new players, though. I guess the later one, but
Well, that was when I was the one
that
with
was
Kawhi
a while
Leonard
later. Yeah.
as the young star, but I think they still had Ginobili and Tony Parker on the team. So it was still kind of the remnants of that kind of middle. Parker and Ginobili weren't around for the 99 team, but they were around for the 3 and 5 years. and that was Popovich was revolutionary in coaching, probably bringing in international players to mesh with American players in a way that really hadn't happened. I guess there was, maybe you have the occasional maybe one international player on a NBA
On a random
roster.
team, basically, right? Yeah.
Yeah, you had that maybe with maybe the Bulls second uh, three-peat with Tony Kukoc,
Okay.
uh,
Yeah.
who was supposed to be like the Michael Jordan of Europe, and I don't think Michael Jordan of America liked Kukoc, and I think there's some
Yeah.
stories about him not liking um, uh, Kukoc and like not really allowing him into like the flow of the game very often,
Yeah.
and
That's believable.
yeah, yeah, I think there was some maybe at first he was not they were not friends. I think Tony Kukoc had actually come in maybe while Jordan was retired that first time
Uh,
playing baseball, and he had been brought in because
yeah.
uh, he's the next Jordan, and then Jordan the old Jordan didn't like that when he came back, but that's like one guy, like or they had like Vlade Divac or Arvydas Sabonis, they had like the one sort of token um, Euro guy, and then it
Mm.
seems like with the Spurs that's when they started to have it was more like a hockey team kind of an international kind of coalition of players
Yeah.
and so Wembayama I think will fit in well with um, Popovich. He since he is good at kind of that international um, camaraderie or
Yeah. So maybe
blending
maybe the
together.
question then is, you think Popovich will be around long enough to see as a coach? Is he gonna stay? He is 74. Do you think
Yeah,
he'll stay in the league long enough to before he retires to see Wembanyama to a title?
yeah. It depends on. I guess it depends on how early they win the title. I could see him I can see him. I think probably this would be like something you would think would reinvigorate you if you were getting a little bit tired. You have this new player who's supposed to be, one of the best players of the last decade, at least coming into the league.
A generational
And
type player, right?
yeah, and so um,
I mean, it's rare that there are, and I mean, this is seemingly that time, right? Where everyone appears to agree as that Wembanyama is the number one pick this year already. Before we
yeah, I
even
think
gotten into like who had the number one pick, it's already been decided that he is.
yeah, I think this is the LeBron type of thing. Like there was like it's going to be LeBron James, and you know you don't want to be. It is like the number two pick is I guess you could think of the other high picks can do well, like Dwayne Wade and Carmelo Anthony were both drafted in the top five, but
Mm,
Darko Milicic famously was drafted number two overall by the Pistons.
yeah,
That was like it kind of also had that um, echo of the was it 84 draft when or 83 draft when Hakeem Olajuwon was kind of the consensus number one pick, and then Michael Jordan was also around, but the Trailblazers say, well, we already have Clyde Drexler, he plays the same kind of position, and he's a
yeah,
young player. We don't want to draft another guy like him, so we're gonna take Sam Bowie out of Kentucky, and then the Bulls get Jordan, and like so, like it's like one of those I think where going back, you would say, well, the Rockets should have picked Jordan over Olajuwon, but like there was nobody that would have guessed that would have been the smart pick at that time. So I guess there's possibility I think that somebody might turn out to be better than Wembanyama um, in this draft, but yeah, this is like Kevin Durant or somebody like that that's going to be should be the number one overall.
I'd forgotten that. Yeah, Chris Bosh was in that draft too. He went number 4, ahead of Dwayne Wade in the
Oh, okay.
2003 draft. Milicic was second overall to the Pistons.
So he was the only one in that top five who basically is not a Hall of Fame level player. I don't know if Chris Bosh in the Hall of Fame?
No. Yeah, looks like it is. Player who has been inducted into the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame. Chris Bosh is highlighted there, so apparently.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
Bosh and Wade apparently already are in. LeBron and Carmelo
there's no chance
are
that they won't be. Yeah.
not yet, but likely will be.
Yeah, I would say Carmelo. If Bosch is in, Carmelo Anthony would be because I think Carmelo Anthony, despite he didn't have any titles, I guess, but he was,
Yeah.
I think in general, he was a better player for longer
He
than.
had the gold medals though, I think, right? From
That's
the
true.
Olympic team too, which I think does factor into
Hmm.
decision making, I think. It tends
Yeah,
to this anyway.
yeah. It's also a little bit like so that 2000 was it 2003 NBA draft. So four out of the top five were Hall of Famers and one bust at number two. It's very
Yeah.
similar to the 1989 NFL draft. Do you know who was drafted number one and any of the top five? The Chiefs had one of the top five
In which
picks.
year?
1989
No, I don't.
NFL
Yeah.
draft. So that was the year that Dallas had the number one overall pick, and they picked Troy Aikman
Okay, that makes
as
sense.
um, number one. Detroit was number three that year, and they picked Barry Sanders. The Chiefs were number four. They got Derek Thomas,
Yeah.
and the Falcons are number five, and they got Deion Sanders. And so those
Oh
like
wow.
so that's the top. Those are the four Hall of Famers, and then second was Tony Mandarich. Do you remember him?
No,
He was
no, not at
he
all.
was like supposed to be like this like can't miss lineman, but I think he like was on steroids or something, and he became a bust. He got hurt, and he was referred sometimes called the best. Like I'm reading his Wikipedia article now, the best offensive line prospect ever. He was two overall. He was going to be a tackle, um, and he ended up just playing for a few years, but um, he never caught on. They talked. They did. Yeah, he did apparently use steroids, and that was a big part of it. He was forced to because he was like a workout warrior, and he was maybe with the NFL strict testing not going to be able to do that. And since things have changed a little bit since the '80s with like Lyle Alzado and people like that, but yeah, so he was the number two. So he is the Darko Mandarich and Milicic. Very similar names, Slavic,
Yeah.
uh, and but number two overall picks when the other four around them were Hall of Famers. I guess you could say probably Aikman was the worst of those uh, four Hall of Fame players
You
because
think
no,
so?
you wouldn't. Well, I don't think anybody would put Aikman in as like one of the best quarterbacks of all time. He was on some good, really good teams, but
They won what,
three
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 championships in
championships with Aikman. Yeah.
yeah.
So that's like if you're like a ring counter, that's what you like. But like if you look at Aikman's statistics over the years, like they're just kind of okay. He the most
Just from that
yards he ever.
list, the from those he has the most championships of those four.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, well, Dion won one with him, I think. Uh, didn't he win one of those Cowboys championships with him? Yeah. So he's got more than the other four combined because the Spare Sanders and Derek Thomas, of course, never won.
yeah.
And
Dion
then
had two.
and he won with his was it the 49ers once and then the Dallas.
One with the 49ers in 95. And then the next year with Dallas, yeah.
Yeah. So he won two in a row. So I guess he's got so 3-2. But neither of those championships were with the Falcons, who got him. But
Who actually drafted him, right?
but yeah, if you look at Aikman's stats, I think the most yards he ever passed for in a season was 3,445, which is maybe 90, it was 1992. That's quite a few for that era. But like,
Yeah.
if you look at Steve Young or some of those other Brett Favre, those other quarterbacks of that era, they passed for a lot more. The most touchdown passes he ever threw in a season was 23. That was that year, 92. Um, and
But he
that's
also
with
had like the best running back in the league.
he's the best running one of the best running
Championship,
backs,
so like, yeah,
one of the best running backs, and a great offensive line, and that's why they won. And they had a good defense. I would say Barry Sanders was a better running back than Emmitt Smith, even though um, Smith ended up with more yards, but Sanders, I think, was the best running back in the modern era. And you could argue that maybe Dion was is the best or one of the best cornerbacks and return people, and that I think Derek Thomas is up there, maybe behind Lawrence Taylor as the best edge rusher, outside
yeah.
linebacker. And so like, and then yeah, but Aikman, yeah, I don't think he finished top 5 in the MVP voting one time. He did not. He was never a first or second team All Pro at his position. So he was a solid quarterback, but he was not
6-time Pro Bowler,
6-time Pro Bowler. Yeah,
Super Bowl MVP.
Super Bowl MVP. But he threw 165 touchdown passes. I believe Patrick Mahomes has passed him in that number. And he also threw 141 interceptions. So he was just barely 1-to-1, over 1-to-1 in his TD to interception ratio. Um,
Mahomes is way past him, 192.
yeah. Like, so Brett Favre
with
started 2
with
weeks.
with only a third of the interceptions,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
About a little more than a third.
Yeah. So Brett Favre, I guess, played a lot longer than Aikman. Aikman had concussion problems and stuff, but like he started in 1991 and he threw for 508 touchdowns and he played for 20 years, but 336 interceptions, so a lot of interceptions too. But he had, he threw for over 4,000 yards several times and he threw
Yeah.
for 30 plus touchdowns several times. And that was not something that Aikman ever did, even with Michael Irvin and, Jay Novacek and, these good players um, on the team. He was not and this is something I didn't really realize when I was a kid. I thought, because Troy Aikman was on the Cowboys. He was supposed to be one of the best quarterbacks, but like he wasn't recognized really by the writers or as one of the best of his era, really. Or you look at Steve Young's stats as well. Like it's a different era. It's a different system that he played in. He played in San Francisco, but
Right.
when Young became a starter, he threw for um, you know well over 3,000, sometimes 4,000 yards, sometimes 30 plus touchdowns. He won 2 MVP awards. Um, and
And was
yeah, so
mobile as a
and was
quarterback.
mobile. Yeah, he ran. Yeah, he was one of the first of these kind of or maybe modern mobile quarterbacks or something. But
Yeah.
yeah, he was um, high quarterback ratings. He had a 96.8 career quarterback rating.
Well,
Brett Favre had a 86 career quarterback rating. That's lower than I would have guessed, but he threw a lot of interceptions. Troy
but he was
Aikman's
the
quarter,
gunslinger
yeah,
type quarterback, though, that is going to have a lower rating.
yeah. Troy Aikman's quarterback rating was 81.6, which is for his era not terrible, but it's not like
Fine. Yeah.
it's not like you think Hall of Fame level, maybe even I don't know, but he had a 99 quarterback era quarter uh, uh, passer rating one year, but he never got to 100.
But if you have a running game like the Cowboys had, they could use a quarterback such as like a Tim Tebow type and
Mm-hmm.
still be like okay, probably, right? But
Yeah,
but
yeah,
they
I guess.
the Cowboys won
But
multiple
Tebow, but
championships.
Tebow
Very good.
ran well,
Yeah.
and like or it's like Lamar when Lamar Jackson had that MVP season. Like he only threw for like 3,200 yards, but he threw for a ton of touchdowns
Yeah.
because the running game was so good, the passing game was always wide open. So you would think, well, if the running game is so good, isn't the passing game going to be open? So it could be maybe it's a product of the Cowboys' offense wasn't very um, modern. They just relied on having better players. This is a little like because Jimmy Johnson was a college coach and at
Yeah.
Miami, and all basically all you do is recruit the best players in college, and there's not necessarily a lot of strategy. And
Yeah.
then they had Barry Switzer, who won the third championship, and he was the Oklahoma coach. Well, what do you do if you're playing, Oklahoma? You recruit the best players, and sometimes through nefarious methods, and that's how
Yeah.
you win championships. So like, um, it's interesting. Yeah, I just think that's like that's it's a different era, but like Tony Romo, who eventually replaced Aikman after a few different guys. He was a um, you know much. I guess it's a different era. It's more passing, but like his quarterback ratings was always he had one season, and that was when he was hurt. That was below Troy Aikman's average, and all the rest of his seasons were at least 90. His quarterback rating,
Hmm.
and I don't think anybody really thinks of Romo as being a maybe Dallas. They like him because he was the last quarterback until Prescott recently won playoff games, but
Yeah.
um,
I think he was a solid quarterback, but yeah, it never did quite the same things that, their favorite,
yeah,
of the eras for the Cowboys did anyway.
yeah, I think like it's like so they had the Cowboys. It was Nate Newton and in case he's called coach Larry Allen as the Hall of Fame lineman and Emmett Smith, Michael Irvin, and like some big defensive guys that were you know rotating in and out. That were the anyway. I think we were talking about the NBA draft, but that I think it did remind me of the NFL draft
Yeah.
that 2003 year, especially when um, 80% of the top five is a Hall of Famer, and one is really bad. It's a little like Russian roulette, I guess. It's you have the chance of you're usually you're going to turn out okay, but there's a possibility that things are going to end. Really. So you might get Tony Manovich, or you might get Darko Milicic, and but you also um, and it's a little well, it's also a little funny because the Packers for at least at that point had been terrible for a very long time, and um, I think they got Brett Favre within a year or two, 3 years after that, and then they also had luck drafting Aaron Rodgers, and now they have Jordan Love, uh, who like Aaron Rodgers. They're both. We'll talk about the Chiefs schedule, I guess, later. They're both in the Chiefs schedule this year, but anyway, that's I don't. Do we have anything else to talk about the NBA? So we have, I guess, we have the NBA playoffs to talk about.
Well, I was going to say one more thing about the Spurs and their, supposed number one pick so far. They only won 22 games this year. How many would you predict them to win next season with Wembanyama?
Um,
One just in this first season. Do you expect to have a big impact on the team, or do you think he'll make the team significantly better? I think it is another. It's still kind of a rebuild sort of transition time.
yeah, it's hard to say because I haven't because the Spurs have been bad. I haven't like looked in to see why they were bad. Like, were they bad because they just had bad players? Were they bad because they had a lot of injury, um, bad luck this year, or was it just because they don't have any players anymore? And I think um, who do they? Yeah, they don't have. I don't know who's the best player on the Spurs right now.
I have no clue. But just generally, do you expect them to improve by having the number one overall player in year one?
Yes, I do. I do. I would expect them.
That's all I was really looking for there.
Okay, I would expect them to win 40
Probably not a
games.
playoff run, but better than this year.
Fighting. I think they're going to be fighting for 500 record at least. So I would guess I'm going to say 40 and 42. That will be the record. Um, and it's like one of those things like, well, one player can really change the fortunes of a basketball team, and you usually need two or three really good players to win a
Right.
championship. Like you could
But
one
now
good
they
player.
have this guy. It may be easier to bring in another free agent, right, to fill in a different role. knowing that they have a generational talent coming in to join the team. Isn't that's the hope that you at least have as a
Yeah,
franchise and as a
and you
fan
could,
base for that franchise, right?
yeah, it's like a little bit like the NFL where you have this guy who's so good, but he's playing on the rookie salary scale. There's going to be a lot of money available on the cap, you would think,
Sure.
to bring in somebody else who is,
But
um,
a team that drafts a quarterback number one overall, you don't expect them to win a lot of games in their first year necessarily, right? It's
mhm.
usually the quarterbacks that are drafted to be like a 1 year out replacement, like the Chiefs got with Mahomes, that they have the better future, at least anyway. First year quarterback with a rookie, yeah, the first year after a number one draft pick, that team usually isn't good enough to really compete because of that one addition, right?
Yeah,
I mean, it's taken Jacksonville a couple years to be decent. They became a playoff team now in what, second year
second year, yeah, and that was
with
in the first, really the first year that they
Trevor
had
Lawrence.
a real coach.
Yeah,
Um, since it
right.
was the
Because they brought the circus to town immediately
yeah,
after.
hmm yeah, because they had the Urban Meyer
Yeah,
fiasco, and but then like Doug Peterson, who was fired from Philadelphia because they didn't think he was good enough, like he is, Super Bowl winning coach, and probably at least you would say, I guess he's fired from Philadelphia. Then he was fired from Indianapolis, right? He was in Indianapolis a couple of years ago, right? Was that Peterson? Um, and and
hmm.
maybe not. No, no, he was Philadelphia Eagles. Like
Yeah.
I
I didn't
was
think he was in the league again, but I'm not
well, I
sure.
was I was confusing him with Frank Reich. Frank Reich was fired from the Colts, and is maybe going to do the similar thing with Carolina. People hope because the Carolina had kind of a college coach that maybe was a bit in a bit over his head, Matt Rule, now the
Yeah,
Nebraska Cornhuskers coach. Um, and so maybe they can think, well, with the diminutive Bryce Young under center, they'll become a playoff team. They're also like in a bad division, like Jacksonville. They're in the NFC South post
yeah,
Brady and post Breeze, and maybe I would think maybe the Saints are probably the best position because they have Derek Carr, who's at least a serviceable quarterback, and he has been for a while. So yeah, I think it's possible. In the NFC, it's wide open because there aren't any good quarterbacks really in the NFC except for Jalen
yeah.
Hurts and maybe Kirk Cousins and Dak Prescott. And
Jordan Love.
If Matthew Stafford is healthy, but yeah, Jordan Love possibly, I guess. It doesn't seem likely right now, but who knows? So yeah, I don't. Yeah, anyway, yeah. So I would say one with just so basketball, it's just one out of five guys on the floor rather
Right.
than 1 out of 22. Uh, Even if it's a
Probably
quarterback.
expect more wins because of one player's influence than in basketball than you would in other sports, though, right?
Yeah,
In the first year, at least, anyway.
yeah. So I'm yeah. That's why yeah. I would say maybe close to 500. Depending, it also depends on who else they bring in. So if
But
they bring in
close to 500 in the NBA, maybe pushing for a playoff
yeah, you'd probably be at least
contention.
in the play-in tournament. You might
You
be
could
able,
be at least close to that, if not
yeah,
solidly in the play-in tournament with the 500 record.
yeah. So if you're yeah, so I was thinking they might be 40 and 42. So that'd be 18 more wins. Um,
That'd be pretty impressive.
yeah, and because Popovich is a good coach, I think having I don't know what if Wembanyama is as good as people say he is, would he be a top 10 player in the league just
Yeah,
entering the league?
immediately, I wouldn't think so, but we're talking too much about future stuff. What about what's going on in the NBA right now?
Yeah, so we have the final four has been determined, and there's also been some coaching carnage that has occurred because of
as a result.
results in the conference semifinals. So the Nuggets beat the Suns.
So
And
badly that they fired their coach.
yeah, uh, they fired Monty Williams,
Monty Williams,
who
that's right, yeah.
was dismissed because I think he'd been there 4 years. And what was the score of Game Six? They lost
It was
125 to 100, so they lost by 25.
yeah.
Um,
A similar score in the Boston Philadelphia series
yeah,
also ended with the coach firing,
hmm
with Doc Rivers being dismissed.
yeah,
Did you
yeah.
know
That's
his record in game sevens as a career was like six, I think 6-10 now in
oh,
game sevens.
Game Seven. It's well, it's a you would
But I think he's lost the last six though,
okay.
which I think
So
is
it
a
wasn't. So
it
that's a bad
seems as though
streak to
there's a
be a
trend.
6-10 is not. I mean, it's like if you're playing a Game Seven, it's a team that you're probably pretty evenly matched with,
Yeah.
and it might depend on who's at home in those games. So if he was on the road for most, like maybe if he's on the road for most of them, 6-10 is not necessarily bad. Or if
Yeah.
he's or if his team is the lower seed, 6-10 is not necessarily bad either. But you would like to be higher, and it's also playoffs, so like the teams are better than like the other. Like
Yeah.
it's these are all against high quality competition. You would think it's a little like you think a playoff record. Somebody only has a 500 playoff record. Well, that's really good if you have a 500 playoff record because if
Yeah.
you win half the games against the playoff teams and
Yeah.
3/4 of the games against the bad teams, then you're a contender for championships a lot of the time. So it's so, but
Apparently that is the record for NBA coaches in game seven losses now.
okay, so 10.
Yeah. But that is
Well,
I mean that's a lot of appearances
yeah, he's
to get
been
to
in
those. That wasn't
16. Yeah,
that's a lot of game sevens.
yeah. So he's been a successful coach.
Won
He,
one championship with Boston.
mhm. The team in this year, and Boston, uh, their coach, they've had some coaching issues
Mm,
over the
yes.
past couple of years. Yeah,
Because you have a
because
new coach this season from last year.
Joe Mazzulla is their coach, and before uh, he coached this whole entire
The whole
season.
year, yeah.
But before that, they had uh, Ime Udoka, who only coached for 1 year. He was,
But it seemed like they really liked him, but then yeah, he had some issues with the management,
yeah, and with violations of
team policies.
conduct codes and dealing with
Right.
women on the staff and things like that.
Yeah.
So that's not good. Uh, and
But
it's a
he
little,
just recently signed to coach next year, didn't he?
yeah, he's going to be the Rockets coach.
Okay.
He just a couple weeks ago he signed with Houston. So he was seen as an up and comer. He had coached two um, just one full season, and he was a former Greg Popovich assistant for a very long time.
Hmm.
Played a couple of years with San Antonio as well, and but before that, it was kind of interesting because before um, Missoula and Udoka, it was Brad Stevens who was the coach, and he's a young-ish guy. He's only 2 years older than we are. He's 46. He retired from coaching and he became uh, the general manager basically of
He got promoted
Boston.
essentially,
Yeah,
right?
it's kind of interesting. I just think he'd rather be the um,
Management than the day to
management.
day.
Yeah, it's because he was he never quite he led Boston to um, some success in the regular season, but they never won a championship or even a conference
Right.
final. And now this new guy might win the conference because they're playing against Miami Heat, who are eighth seed, but have done really well in the playoffs. And they're like you had said last week, a couple weeks ago, they're a different team in the playoffs.
Overwhelming favorites in the East right now, I think, on the by the sports books. It was something like 97%, I think, chance is what the sports books are saying
Oh
for
wow,
Boston to advance over the Heat.
that seems a little high,
Yeah.
especially given that Boston played a tough seven games against Philadelphia and the Heat. They got through six, I think, against the Knicks. So they've
Yeah.
had a couple days off. I think I yeah. So I would. It's also possible now that there's going to be two Miami teams, Miami Heat and the Florida Panthers, are both possibly going to be in the championship series for the NBA and NHL respectively.
That's right.
Um, but so yeah, so I guess the favorite would be Boston. And who's the favorite out west? Is it the Lakers or is it the Nuggets, who are the number one seed?
I think it's fairly heavily Nuggets. They're right now looks like they are plus 175 to be in the finals. I guess to win it. The Celtics look like they're the odds-on favorites to win the whole thing right now. Plus 100. Nuggets are plus 175. Lakers plus 500. Heat plus 1700.
Well, if I had to make a bet, I think I would go with I might go with the Lakers because the way they're playing and the way because they're healthy and they have LeBron James, who's still probably better than well, Jokic is pretty good, but like maybe better than anyone left in the playoffs. Um, and if uh, the Brow plays well,
The Brow. Yes. I don't think it's going well right now. It's getting closer actually. So game one in the West is underway for us. This is Tuesday night for us. Into the third. Denver's up 11.
okay,
It was uglier earlier. So the lead has narrowed a bit.
okay, and it's in Denver, right? So
It is in Denver.
it's one of those things where sometimes that first game, especially probably in Denver at altitude, mm, it's probably more of an advantage for the home team that first game rather
Yeah.
than because the second game, I guess they're there and the Lakers will have been there a couple of days and have played in that altitude. And, you know,
I always prefer I like the adage in the NBA especially though. The series doesn't start until the home team loses.
yeah,
So uh the home team's expected to win the game. So and that for the Lakers, that's actually what happened with in their series with Golden State was they won one road game and then held the home court after that, and that was what they needed, being the worst seed
hmm
in that matchup. So
so they didn't get it this time, but maybe they could if they get game two, or I guess it's still possible they can get it this time. They
there's
can
still
win
a
game
quarter left, but
11 point lead is it's I guess in the NBA the way the teams score. Uh,
apparently the quarter was not quite over. So now it's on the end of the quarter shows a 14-point lead. There must have been a
okay, three at the buzzer or
three
something.
pointer at the buzzer. Oh, maybe it was initially called not a score, and then it was reviewed and
Oh, he got rid of he shot it
they
in time
called it
apparently.
correctly. I guess I don't know. Well, that's what it looks like. Yeah, ref initiated review. So it's a 14-point lead now. So it's maybe a little
That makes it
uglier than
a little,
it.
yeah, but
Yeah.
you never know. So NBA, I guess we maybe both of us are probably rooting for Boston Lakers, Celtics, Lakers. Final four. Or are you going for the Nuggets Heat?
I
The
think I
contrarian.
expect it to be Nuggets Celtics. I would prefer the other. So I would want the other to be the other matchup. I'd rather
You want
see
like
Miami
you prefer
Miami
Lakers
Lakers.
Lakers Heat.
Yeah, because it's
Showtime.
LeBron against his old team. That's
That's
more
true.
that's more entertaining, I think, at least anyway, from an outside fan's perspective.
I still like this historic Celtics Lakers rivalry. So
Uh,
that's who I would go with.
I don't want that
Um,
because I never liked the Celtics. I found that really annoying. I was an
hmm.
anti-Celtics
Well, you
person from
didn't
being a child.
you
Yeah.
didn't like well, you probably also didn't like the Paul Pierce being a KU
I
uh,
did not.
guy.
I don't like
Won
the
a
former
title with the
KU players
Celtics.
anywhere. They can I root
That
against those teams wherever they go.
one of the first super teams when Garnett and Ray Allen and Paul Pierce
Yeah. They
teamed
were
up.
really good though, but
Yeah.
doesn't mean I'm gonna like them though, right? Yeah.
Speaking of really good but not liking them, I think all four NHL Final Four teams are in that category for me because
All of
you
my
know
picks won
all of your picks won. None
because
of
I
the
just went against what you said, and
neither
then all of your
Canadian team
teams
won,
lost.
neither Northern team won. So it's out west. It's the Vegas Golden Knights versus the Dallas Stars, and the Stars have the most storied history of any of the four teams left, and uh,
Dating all the way back to
well, 1967, the North
the
Stars, but
late
they've
60s.
they've been in Dallas since the early 90s, so they've been there for 30 years. It's a little like maybe calling the at this point almost calling the Dodgers. Uh, just
Yeah.
you think of them still as should be being in Brooklyn or something, um, or like when the Dodgers were playing like in the 70s and 80s, thinking of well, you think of them as the Brooklyn Dodgers, but they were the it's been and Minnesota has its own team now, so like but the Carolina Hurricanes were have a similar history. They were the Hartford Whalers, and uh, they, I believe, also have won. So the Dallas Stars have won a Stanley Cup. I believe Carolina has also won a
Did
Stanley
Dallas
Cup.
win as Dallas, or did Dallas win as
They won
the
as
former
Dallas.
North
They never won
Stars?
as Minnesota.
Yeah.
And so the Hurricanes didn't win as the Hartford Whalers either. They won as the
Hmm.
Carolina Hurricanes. So those two
Okay.
teams each have one title. The Vegas Golden Knights, where it started in 2017-2018 season, they went to the finals that year. They lost to the Capitals.
Which is a
But
crazy run as an expansion team, though,
yeah,
right?
going to the finals that first year, they haven't been back.
Yeah.
And then we have the Carolina Panthers on the other side, who have been around about 30 years now, but they've only made it to one Stanley Cup final, I think, and they haven't won. So like, the team that wins at most is going to win their second Stanley Cup. So it's and the team, I think we figured out before, the team that's farthest north is actually the Las Vegas Golden Knights, and then it's
Right.
Charlotte, and then Dallas, and then Miami. Or actually, they play in Paradise, Florida, which is near Fort Lauderdale. So, uh, if we want the northern teams to win, I guess we want it to be a Carolina Vegas series. Although, would you prefer the? I think you might prefer the glitzier Vegas, uh, Miami uh, series. Is that
I think I'm rooting for Vegas in the West. And then I don't really care about the other one. I don't like the Florida teams either in particular, but I don't have any reason to root for Carolina, so I don't really care. I'll say Florida, but I don't really care.
I guess I want Carolina and Dallas just because they're the
Yeah.
historical
And
teams,
and we
but
get to stay on opposing sides of
yeah,
things.
I don't like
And
none of the
realistically, after the last round of the NHL playoffs, I should just pick against whatever you did, and I will be great. Right?
I picked
It's led me to a 4-0
basically
record.
everybody I picked has lost. Like I picked Boston to win. They lost. Then I picked okay, then it's gonna be Toronto and Edmonton are gonna do well and they're gonna go, oh, they lost. So like yeah, all
And
so it's
Seattle lost in Game 7 like last night. So
yeah, so I
yeah,
don't I don't really care what happens in the NHL.
you came around on the Kraken and became a big Kraken fan for like 8 seconds, I think,
I did
and
by
then they were
default.
immediately eliminated.
Yeah, I did by default. Um,
Does that sound right?
because the Devils and the Oilers were gone. So like, okay, here's the Kraken. That's my last
Right.
yeah, because of their 1917 Stanley Cup, as the Seattle Metropolitans or whatever it was.
Don't you like the rarity of a team with a nickname that doesn't end with an S, though? Isn't that
I tend not to like the teams that don't end in S. Um,
there aren't that many? So
Yeah, Utah Jazz, Heat.
Miami Heat.
I guess you had the Red Sox and the White Sox technically end in
Because
X,
an X, yeah.
but it sounds like an S. We talked
Right.
about that before, how like both those teams, it was cool to end it with an X, but like, that was over 100 years ago when they thought that was cool, and it stuck. Um, I think that's kind of interesting, but um, yeah, that's I don't know if we have much more to talk about the NHL, but
Yeah.
so
We'll
NHL
check in again.
settled the final four field, the conference finals, and then as is the NBA. I think the NBA has more interesting teams, at least for us, left, but maybe because we're a little more interested in the NBA right now than the NHL. But at least with these, I don't know with these teams. I guess Denver's a really good team. They deserve probably to be where they are. They beat the Suns, who were starting to find their way. It seemed like, but and then yeah, we have the Lakers and the Heat, who have been historically good recently, and the Celtics as well. So like, yeah, pretty pretty solid.
Yeah.
But not solid. We could say are the Royals. Although it looks like they're winning right now. Last time I
Yeah,
saw,
do you remember what I told you based on the lineup I thought the Royals would do today?
no, we could shut out. You think?
I thought they were going to be terrible, though. Yeah, I didn't
Yeah,
expect them to be up 5-0.
they're 5-0.
That's very surprising to me. They had gone on a nice stretch between the time that we spoke last week now now they had what 4 out of 5 games.
5. Yeah, it seemed like they're catching up. Like they were inspired by Lorenzo Kane, I think, and really turned a corner. But then they turned another corner back to where they were before, and took a U-turn. I don't know what analogy to say, but yeah, they uh,
And then
have
dropped 4 straight.
yeah
Yeah, so they were in all of the games and they had chances probably to win each of the games in their recent losing streak, but have not quite had enough to continue their winning ways.
yeah their offense has been um, better mostly, although it's been a little more hit and miss the last few games. But yeah, they got swept by the Brewers, and now
They nearly got no hit yesterday
yeah, by the Padres. Yeah,
because
um,
I think they didn't get a hit until like Massey, I think, broke it up, leading off the 8th inning.
yeah, Michael Wacha, the former Cardinals.
Who they've struggled against in the past.
Yeah, I think he almost pitched no hitter. I think against the Royals before. I think as a Cardinal, right? Or it seems
And
like it.
I bet the only player that was on both of those teams might have been Sal, because I think
Probably.
like basically an entirely different Royals team.
Yeah, I don't know when the last uh yeah, this Waka has bounced around the last few years. So
Yeah.
he was with the Cardinals last in 2019. He's been with the Mets, he's been with the Rays, he's been with the Red Sox, and now he's with the Padres. So yeah, he's been up and down. He was, I think, we used to at one point thought to be like the next great young Cardinals pitcher, like since Roy Halladay and Adam Wainwright like that, but has not been as successful. But still a solid pitcher. Um, I don't know if we want to talk any more about the Royals. They've been bad, but they're winning tonight, 5-0. So maybe there will be 13-31. Have a nice symmetrical mirror image
Yeah.
record.
Somewhat
Uh,
somewhat pleasing to the eye.
yeah. So we're about more now than a fourth of the way through the season, and even if you multiply it by four, that the Royals are on pace to win 52 games if they win tonight, and that's 52 and 110 basically. As if they are slightly better than they've been. So that is a really really bad season, and
And
they're
yeah, 17 games below what their expected was, uh that we bet on, at least anyway. We took the
yeah
over on 68.5. So they were looking well below that.
yeah we're not that's not going to turn out well unless they really somehow catch fire. Uh, the other team as well. The Pirates are still treading water of the 500. They've lost a lot of games recently. They've gone downhill. Maybe they can turn it around. The Red Sox are a little bit over 500, so that's looking okay for me. And then I picked the Tigers to be under, but they're also kind of around 500, so as well,
Yeah.
isn't that great. So, but how about your teams? Are they?
Um, so the one team that has turned it around for me, the only one that I have a chance at is the Dodgers. And the Dodgers have gone on quite a streak now, and they're looking at well over their 96 and a half
Mhm.
projection for wins. I think right now
They've
they're
won.
aiming at like 104, 105,
They've won
106
six
maybe
six
even.
in a row. Yeah,
Yeah, so they've gone on quite a streak. I think they've won, yeah, like 8 of the last 10. But yeah, 6 in a row.
yeah. I would have thought they would have. Because I mean,
This is
they're
closer to
probably
where I thought they would be, but I didn't
yeah,
expect them to win like basically all their games
yeah,
all at once, basically.
they're heating up. I think, and they're just probably just getting into the flow. Maybe we could say, well, the Royals are too. They're just taking a little while to adjust, but they're
They're
already in
just
such a big hole.
warming up.
Um, yeah, just warming up. Um, I guess the NFL season isn't even close to warming up yet, but we do have the schedule that was announced. The Chiefs have, I think, six primetime games, which is the maximum allotted, and they are going to open the season on a Thursday night in early September against the Detroit Lions. Were you surprised that the Lions were the pick for the opening day or opening
Yeah,
night?
I think it's probably actually a good choice though for the league because they get like in the up and coming Lions. I think people are getting excited about the Lions maybe finally. They had a great finish to last season. It kind of makes sense to put them there, but it seems like you'd go ahead and put a rivalry game or like
Well,
a
maybe,
matchup,
yeah.
a rematch from the Super Bowl. That seems like the most obvious thing to do
Mhm.
for opening day, but
Well, you could also say, well, that's a captive audience. They're going to watch the game anyway, so why waste a good
exactly.
matchup there and just
So
put
I
the
think that's why they chose this one is because I think it's more of a let's see if we can also feature the Lions so that people will pay attention to them, thinking that the league can have them
Mhm.
be, the team of the future.
Like if they won surprisingly, that would be. I'm sure the NFL would kind of love that.
Yeah.
Um, but again, it's very early. Who knows what's going to happen? But I think the Chiefs are 7-point favorites right now in that game. But
Before
the
we
Chiefs,
know who the
yeah,
starting players
yeah,
are and stuff like that. Yeah.
yeah.
Yes.
They have a lot of of course, big games because they have another first place schedule, so they're playing all the good teams in the AFC. They're playing the AFC East this year, and so they're one of the games. I think week 4 is at the Jets with Aaron Rodgers. Which might be interesting. They're also at the Packers with Jordan Love, so they've got both of those storylines. Uh, at Lambeau, I think this would be Mahomes' first game at Lambeau, and also it will be Mahomes' first game against Rodgers if they're both healthy because Rodgers had COVID I think last year, right? Or when they played, was it 2 years ago?
Oh
Last
yeah. And
it might have been
it was a love that they faced instead.
yeah,
Yeah.
they faced Love. I think it was 2 years ago, and then that was the dislocated kneecap year. Uh, the other time that the Packers played the Chiefs, and there was a Chad Henne, or there was a Matt Moore start,
Sounds
uh,
right.
and actually the Chiefs made a pretty good game of it against the favored Packers with Matt Moore as the quarterback. So, and they beat the Vikings the next week with Matt Moore. So it's the NFC North. So the Chiefs are going to the Vikings, and they're hosting the Bears and the Lions. So those are some good games, but it seems like the biggest games on the schedule are all going to be at home, kind of late in the season.
Yeah, quite a bit later in the year.
At least other than maybe the Chargers games, we could say are pretty big.
Yeah.
They're at the Chargers the final week of the season, January 7th. They host the Bills, the Eagles, and the Bengals, all like November 20th or later in Arrowhead. So that those are going to be probably big games, and that's probably what the NFL was wanting to save
Yeah.
for later in the season.
Yeah. The tune-ups for the playoffs and Mahomes has that crazy December record already, right? Of win-loss record in the month of December. I
Yeah, I
think he's.
believe is he still undefeated in the month of December?
I think he didn't. Did they lose to
Well, they lost to
Cincinnati
Cincinnati.
last year?
He's 20-3, I guess, in the month of December. Let's
Yeah,
see.
but that's a pretty
Um,
crazy record for late in the year.
it says, oh yeah, okay, he is. Uh, okay, so he was 3-2 in his first five, and then he won uh, seven. He's won 17 out of his last 18 December games. So he had won 15 straight December games before losing to the Bengals,
Wow. Yeah,
or
that's
14 straight new December games before losing to the Bengals. Um,
that's crazy.
yeah, he's
But maybe the most important game on the schedule, at least from the international standpoint, Chiefs playing the Dolphins in Germany.
Germany.
Is that circled on your calendar?
I think that'll be interesting. It's 9:30 a.m. Eastern time start, 8:30, I guess, Arrowhead time,
Hmm.
and it's the return of Tyreek Hill, I guess. So he's not coming back to Arrowhead, but I think that'll be fun. And Chiefs lose technically a home game, but they had 9 home games this year because of the way the schedule balances out. So eight still have 8 home games, and yeah, I think that's a fun game to schedule for overseas. I think the Chiefs. It seemed like the Chiefs were going to play the Bears. That's what people were thinking. They were going to play the Bears in Germany, but I think the Chiefs wanted to play the Bears at home.
Hmm.
I think they petitioned the league or something like that. And I guess I'm not quite sure why. I guess maybe because the proximity of Chicago to Kansas City, and or maybe just not wanting to see Hill come back.
Yeah, I guess they had some influence over which home game they lost, essentially, right?
Yeah,
I mean, I know the fans will travel for the game. I think they do get some kind of priority for tickets. I don't know how much of the stadium they get, but fans that are season ticket holders get some kind of ability to buy tickets for that Germany game.
yeah, they're playing. So they're going to play in Frankfurt and called the Deutsche Bank Park right now, which I think is interesting. That there's a European stadium called a park because you wouldn't think that's well, I think what we associate as a baseball stadium type of name. I don't know. Maybe there are some English soccer stadiums called something park, but
Maybe.
um, but yeah, it's a different. That's I don't. It's a um, interesting. It only has it only holds about 50,000 people, so it's going to be a small venue for compared to either Chiefs or Dolphins home stadiums. So, but it'll probably be loud and fun. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that game. Any other games on the schedule that you want to talk about, or any other um,
I was a little
football
surprised.
issues?
I thought this schedule seemed maybe easier than last year's schedule looked initially. I don't know.
Yeah, I think because the Chiefs were playing the NFC West last year. So you think, okay, it's the Rams who won the Super Bowl. It's the 49ers who are always contending. Uh, you know,
Hmm.
maybe you think the Cardinals and the Seahawks might be up and coming teams. So like that's a tougher. Um, and I guess the Chiefs didn't win the Super Bowl, so you think they're not as tough as they were. So like, the Bengals are going to play again, the Bills are going to play again, and so they're playing all these teams this year. But it seems like the Chiefs were more confident in them because even
Well, and
though,
they seem to be in Kansas City too. So
yeah,
for the at least the highest power matchups from what we expect the team's performance to be at the point that they face them, at least. Uh, yeah, it seems like they have a little bit more of an advantage than they seem to have, I think, than last year's schedule when it came out. Although some of the teams they faced weren't didn't end up being as high powered as I think we expected them to be initially.
yeah, and some of the
So,
teams turned out to be a little better. Like Jacksonville turned out to be better than we had thought. But yeah, a lot of the teams ended up not having. Yes, Arizona was not good, but the Chiefs kind of rolled Arizona when they were at their best. They ended up rolling the 49ers as well, and they beat all four NFC West teams pretty easily. So They had they struggled. Maybe again, well, I guess we thought the Colts were going to be good last year
Mhm.
with Matt Ryan. We thought, okay, they should have gone to the playoffs the year before when they lost to the Jaguars and they got knocked out. But then you think, oh, Matt Ryan's replacing uh, Philip
Said
Rip, Philip
and
Rivers, and
yeah,
you
right.
think Ryan is a step up, but he didn't do so well. And like there was all that craziness with Jeff Saturday and things like that. But to do
Oh,
the Chiefs caught them early when they were a little better. And they also kind of got screwed on a few calls in that game.
yeah,
And but they still lost, they lost to the Colts, they lost to, they lost to the Bills and they lost to the Bengals, but those are the two of the other two best teams probably in the conference. So it's not a big
right.
and they
Playoff
and they
game.
yeah, and they won all their division games. So like they're 14-3, and then they went 3 on the playoffs. So 17-3 is not bad. So I guess, and without Tyreek Hill, so we think, okay, we're more confident in maybe the Chiefs' abilities and Mahomes' ability to run the show without maybe just with Kelsey and whoever is out there.
Looking through the schedule, where would you guess that they would take their first loss on the season?
Um,
Or what statistically, in your mind at least anyway, where do you think the first tough game is that they, have the worst chance of winning, I guess, anyway.
I would think maybe it's week 2 actually at Jacksonville. It's an early game. It's in Jacksonville. Maybe you would think that the Jaguars might be, but like I would guess though, like if Mahomes hadn't been hurt in that playoff game, the Chiefs would have won easily. So
Yeah.
probably I would say either at the Jets or at the Vikings, they might
Mm.
slip up. Because again, Rodgers is playing for the Jets. Who knows how to go there? But also, if they beat Rodgers, they might have a little bit of a letdown at Minnesota. But I don't really see them losing those games. The Chargers are always tough, so maybe it's that game.
I think there's a chance though. I think they've lost to them enough that they don't want to lose to anymore. So they'll like figure out
Yeah.
how to, get ready for the game in a way that won't put
Mhm.
them at a disadvantage at least.
You
The
never know
first
what's
game
going to
that I
happen.
saw that like looks at least dangerous anyway is until after the bye against the Eagles. Although it is in Kansas City, but
And it's after a bye, which the Chiefs do very well.
tend to not lose those games, right?
Yes, I,
So
I think maybe it's that Europe game against the Dolphins also. You never know what team's going to show up because it's a long ways away. Um,
it's early in the morning but late at night,
yeah, maybe it's the
same time.
Packers. I think Bill's at home, but maybe it's at Green Bay too because maybe you're looking ahead. The Bills at home. Um, at New England, Mahomes never quite plays that well.
Yeah.
There's always something against New England. That's tough, even if
The,
New
the
England's not very
Packers are
good.
definitely the trap game though, because that's Bills coming up next. They
Yeah.
certainly maybe
You
look
could also
clearly
maybe
looking ahead.
argue at the Raiders after the Eagles is a
Yeah.
trap. So there's I don't know. I think I would guess the Chiefs record will be as good as it was last year. So I would say if it's less than, I think the Chiefs are only, um, if you go to Vegas, like a plus 11 and a half or something is the win total. So I think that's very low. I think I would take the over on that
Yeah.
time. The only thing I think that would make it go under is if Mahomes gets hurt, which is possibility. But if Mahomes is healthy the whole season, I would say
Yeah.
14-3 is probably the record again. Um, Maybe higher, maybe possibly a game lower, depending on what happens.
Somewhere in that area. You expect 13 plus wins, basically, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
The last Chargers game at that point also might be a loss if the Chiefs are in a position where the seeding isn't going to matter.
Yeah.
Like they might be locked into the 1 or the 2 or something, or
Right.
yeah, something like
But if
that.
they're
So
undefeated,
yeah, they're going to play that game. Yeah,
then they're still going to show up for that one, right? So,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Well, it's funny that we're talking about Chiefs being undefeated, but it's still early. We're still
Yeah.
hope springs eternal. But the Chiefs did win last year, so in some ways, this year, even though they don't win it this year, they've won 2 of the last 4 Super Bowls now. We never in our wildest dreams would have guessed the Chiefs would be that good. So things are pretty good in Kansas City. Looking forward to the NFL season in September.
You probably wouldn't guess that the Chiefs would have more wins than the Royals would have in 45 games.
It's true.
Only 43 games, but whatever.
The Chiefs won the Chiefs are 17-3 in 20 games, and the Royals are. I guess we consider the Royals spring training record. That was pretty good. We thought, hey,
Yeah.
they're going to do really well. Yeah, so I don't. Yeah, I don't know. What, do we have any more to add for the NFL? Should we wrap it up for this week?
I think so.
Well, that was another exciting installment. Um, and we'll be back next week to talk even more about the NBA playoffs, the NHL playoffs, possibly any developments in the NFL, um, and things that we're interested in. And also, we have the Royals to continue talking about. Oh, I guess we did the Preakness coming up on Saturday.
Weakness.
Mage, who won the Kentucky Derby, is I believe uh, 8-5 odds. He right now. Um, he was the favorite. Forte, who was the favorite going into the Kentucky Derby, got injured. Is not in the race again. He was the only horse that's really beaten Mage lately. Um, we talked about Mage's bloodlines with Derby champions and year Triple Crown winners. In his grandfather, his grandsires and damsires. But looks like we have First Mission is 5-2, National Treasure 4-1, Blazing Seven 6-1, Red Route 1 10-1, Perform 15-1, Coffee with Chris 20-1, Chase the Chaos 50-1. I don't remember if any of these other horses were in the Kentucky Derby or not.
I have no idea.
So, but I like to see Triple Crowns. I want to see
So you're all in on Mage.
Mage do well. Yeah. Yeah. So, but anyway, other than that, I think we should call it a day.
Right. Preakness stakes is on Saturday.
Saturday. Yeah.
Yeah, we should get our picks
in Baltimore. I will be in the state of Maryland on Saturday, so I will probably try to watch that game or watch that race or some of it with my daughter, who always pretends that she is a horse. She loves horseback riding. She usually identifies as a horse or says, should I be a foal? Should I be a colt? Should I be a filly? The Phillies are her favorite baseball team. And she likes the Colts and the Broncos as her football teams. But she said, "Well, I don't like." Well, she said that I told her that the Broncos were some of the Chiefs' biggest rivals, and she says, "Well, I don't have to like the Broncos." She decided to like the SMU Mustangs instead as her college team, so she likes these horse related related teams. So, but yeah, so I got her a little Colts shirt, horse on it. For Christmas. But yeah, so she is really into horse racing, horse riding, horse anything, and so that's what we'll probably be doing on Saturday. At least watching.
So where did she come down on the Spurs then in the NBA? Is that?
Ooh, the Spurs. I hadn't even thought about that. I'll have to ask her. The Pistons had a horse logo for a while, so maybe that would be the team that she would root for. Or like she likes animal team names as well. So like, I think she likes the Orioles and the Penguins and there's the Lions and stuff like that. So any animal nickname. So I guess maybe the Grizzlies. She might be afraid. She's kind of afraid of theirs. Maybe not. I don't know. In the NBA, I'm not sure what her team would be, but I'll ask her maybe, and then we can make I'll fill you in. I'll fill all of our viewers in next week on what Marie's favorite teams are. If she's 6, she will be 7 in July, so she's pretty big. And her teeth, that she lost her two top, two bottom teeth. Those are growing back in
at the same time. All of them came out.
Almost.
Yeah.
Her top tooth was actually knocked. She lost one of her top teeth first because she was riding a horse, and the horse next to the one that she was riding banged its head into her, so she
Oh,
lost that
really?
tooth first. Yeah, so a horse caused her first tooth loss, and then she lost the bottom two, and the other one.
Hopefully, it was already loose and not.
Yeah, well, it wasn't exactly loose, I don't think, but it would have come out within a few months.
Ah,
So it was one of those things. So she's lost
yeah.
5 teeth in first grade this year. So that's the accomplishment for
Nice.
a kid. But anyway, we'll be back next week with another exciting, action-packed, insightful, and thoughtful, analytical program. And until then, I am Dr. Michael Worman. He is Dr. Andrew Scaff. I guess I could be Dr. Michael Worman, almost Esquire.
Oh, soon.
Yeah, that'd be well. That's gotta be when I pass the bar. So
You have to
then,
get the bar
then you
down.
can add Dr. Esquire on my uh, name tag here. But anyway, I am Dr. Michael Worman. He is Dr. Andrew Scaff. We are the Warning Track Power Hour. Please like and subscribe to our little podcast slash YouTube video channel, and we hope you enjoy it because we enjoy rambling and we don't, and this is something we do for ourselves. We don't really even care about other people, but we do care that you are a valued or a valued viewer, whichever, whether you're doing it, as I once said, uh, uh, AV or just A. And that's enough rambling for now. So we'll see you next week. And until then, wish you a good day.